I hope you're wearing your smarty pants because we're diving deep into marketing data and science on this episode. Our brilliant guest is a conversion rate optimization specialist, and she's sharing her best advice so you can leverage this valuable tool to help your startup grow. It's Fab Female Founder Friday on the Startup Life Live Show. Let's glow, everybody. Woohoo! Music, please. Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Startup Life Live Show. I'm your host, Ande Lyons, 4 times founder and startup champion to founders around the world. And after raising 4 businesses of my own, I have firsthand knowledge and experience of what you all are crawling through and the challenges that you're facing and the high uncertainty that you're experiencing every single day as founders. So I'm thanking you from the bottom of my heart for carving out time to tune in and up your founder game while cheering on a fellow founder. And thank you for liking the video that you're watching from right now, either now live or later via replay. And if you're tuning in from YouTube, please share your subscribe love and click on the bell icon for alerts. Really helps me reach more people, okay? And if you'd like to receive an alert whenever I post a new show, I am just going to bring this up right here. Please join our meetup group right there. You're going to receive an alert whenever I post a new show because you can learn from a founder who's in your industry or can help you with your own startup life and founder journey. So it's so important to grab nuggets from those founders who are in the trenches and making it happen. And did you know you can listen to the Startup Life Live Show on your favorite podcast platform or right on my website by clicking the podcast tab at andelyons.com. And if you find yourself resonating with the show's mission of amplifying diverse founder voices while serving first-time founders around the world, please reach out to me to learn more about how you can make a greater impact on the startup ecosystem by partnering and sponsoring the Startup Life Live Show. So I am so excited to introduce you to our amazing guest, AJ Davis. I'm going to put up a little artwork here while I read her background because she's really an extraordinary founder. She's the founder of Experiment Zone, which helps online businesses grow their revenue by improving the user experience of their website using scientific methods. And before starting Experiment Zone in 2017, AJ led optimization strategy for Fortune 500 companies during her tenure at Clearhead. And she was also the lead UX researcher on the Google optimized product. So come on, we're going to get everything we need to know. Get your questions ready. Get your smarty pants on because we're going to go there with the one and only AJ. Welcome to the show, AJ.
Woo! Super excited to be here.
Where are you hailing from today, AJ?
Coming in from Austin, Texas.
Excellent. I love that. And I know you spent some time here in Boston, right?
That's right. I don't have a Boston accent. I sure don't have a Texas one either. So I've kind of lived here and there, but have really fond connections to Boston.
Excellent. And I'm just going to say a yoo-hoo. Hey, Brent, thank you for tuning in from Canada. And there's some action happening in Ottawa. I'm so happy you're safe, but I have not tuned into the news today. So thank you for letting us know that you are safe. Folks, I want to remind everyone that if you have any questions, be sure to pop them into the comment section because AJ and I are here to help you grow and glow with your startup. And also, when you're tuning in live to the Startup Life Live Show, be sure to share your startup's name, URL, one-liner, and we'll pull it right up here and we'll cheer you on for having the courage to go out there and pursue your dreams and solve a problem with your wonderful startup. And because this show is evergreen, the replay value is really important. You never know who's tuning in and might see your company up there and go, oh, I want to learn more. So amplify away, folks. AJ, quick question. As someone whose name is Ande, right? I'm curious about AJ. Has that been with you since day one, or did you want to neutralize sort of the gender attachment to names? How did that happen?
Well, there's several aspects to it for sure. The real reason is when I was at Google, I was Mandy. And so that was my professional identity, Mandy Davis.
Yeah.
And I moved down to the Boulder office in Colorado. And there was my boss, who was also a Mandy and also in user experience. So I definitely did not want to be Mandy number two. And in UX, the only, like one of the three women on the floor. So I went back to a childhood nickname. So it's
Excellent.
just short, my first and middle name initials.
Yeah,
My folks used to call me that when I was a kid, and been sticking ever since.
I love that. Yeah, my formal name is Andrea.
Mhm.
And so, but I was always Andy growing up with a Y until I kept getting put into the boys' gym class, which I had no problem with. I like boys, but so I changed it, and I wasn't into the I at the end, so I just used E. And again, just to make it sort of, although Alexa calls me Ande, which is so funny.
Well, and I find that I do get assumed to be a man, which I wasn't necessarily thinking about when I picked my nickname again or went back to it.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that when I travel, the scents I get in the hotel room are a little bit more musky than what I used to get in the more floral case.
That's right, because they're not going to.
They're making some assumptions.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of like Dear Sir type emails when people just get my name.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you on that. And I want you to understand how honored I am to have AJ on the show as a woman, as a leader in this category. There are a lot of smarty pants women out there in the marketing departments, in the UX departments, maybe CMOs, but I have to say, rarely is there a female founder who is representing in such a meaningful way in a category that's very high in data and science, like CRO. So we're going to get deep into that. But first, I got to know, as an entrepreneur, everybody has their how I became an entrepreneur story. First of all, why did you leave a guaranteed paycheck behind? That's always my first question. But then after that, why did you want to become an entrepreneur? Did you fall into it? Were you hustling as a kid? How did this happen?
Yeah, I think it's probably just part of my DNA to like be trying to do new things and always trying to learn. So getting a job at Google was, great, right? It's
every
the place
parent's
you're
dream
supposed
come
to.
True now.
Right. It was like, okay, great, I did it, right? But I got there and I had worked in some consulting roles. I had worked at this really interesting R&D company, and I always had my hands in all kinds of interesting problems. And suddenly I was supposed to be an expert in one area, one user group, and just the pace wasn't quite right for me. It was great. It was an amazing place to work, super incredibly smart people. You could always trust your team. So I loved a lot of that and like carry that forward into what we're building with Experiment Zone. But it just wasn't as satisfying as chasing after new problems and like connecting the dots across different
well,
questions.
The beauty though is that you got to work with a team in what I would call a bona fide company, right? Where they had systems and procedures, they had, operations. And so you could say, I like how they did that. No, I would never do that with my own company, right? And seeing how the flow goes. And you can absolutely take that with you. Because I always think about the guy who founded Squarespace, for example, right? In his college room. So he'd never hired anybody. He'd never been hired. He'd never received a paycheck. There were just so many things he didn't know about running a business that he had to scale up quickly. When you get that experience, especially at a large and deep company like Google, you can, refine. And so then, and did you have any role models growing up that were entrepreneurs, or were you set on, getting hired by a big company and working in that area?
I kind of have always blazed my own path. I have some like really incredible people in my lives. Like looking back on it, I definitely had some examples. Like my father runs his own consultancy. So clearly that example is in front of me, but it wasn't a path I thought I was on. I went to college and studied, economics and religion, and that doesn't have the word entrepreneur in it at all. But I just find myself chasing really interesting new things, always looking for that next problem to tackle. And this is the longest I've ever worked on anything because it's just so engrossing. There's so many aspects to growing a company. It's the most satisfied I've ever been professionally.
Oh my gosh. So, I want to know what lights you up then about conversion rate optimization. I mean, seriously, to be honest, for many folks, eyes glaze over. I mean, I've got a wonderful guy who helps me with my YouTube channel, and he sends me these deep reports, and I look at them and I go, okay, I believe you. Not sure what happened there. Well, how is it that this makes your heart sing, AJ?
Yeah, I love fixing the problem in front of us and trying to put stuff into action quickly. So when I was working in my very first job out of college, we were working on timescales of like 5-6 years. We were like doing competitive analysis and then saying, let's put it in the roadmap for the future. Whereas like right in front of us, there were these little pieces of friction and annoying things that we were doing for our customers. And so I just kind of ended up on this career path of like, how can we solve issues that our clients have now so that they can just have a little bit easier time working with us, working on the stuff that we build. And so I moved away from this really quantitative data role to more of a qualitative role, because that's kind of where the industry was at the time. And I was doing usability research, a lot of interviews, and I was left with this question of like, how do we know it worked? And so I found CRO and thought, wow, this puts all the pieces together. I can figure out the problem, test out a hypothesis, and then know in the real world whether it worked or not.
And you're going to know why. How?
And you can usually know why, or if not, you can figure out what the next question is to ask.
Yeah, because you're going to be looking at the data.
Mm-hmm.
And the data is going to start talking to you. Versus,
and you get to start being the person to tell the story of what's in the data. I think a lot of people get lots and lots of spreadsheets. I've had so many clients say, so-and-so consultant set us up with this weekly report. And I say, do you ever look at it? What do you do with that? And they're like, well, we get it in our email.
Yeah, no, I am that person. And I see the results. So of course I'm happy, but I would love the story that goes along. Andy, here's what we did. Here are the link backs that happen. Here's how we took that person who came and visited. And here's what, I just love that you want to tell this story. And also, it is such an important tool that founders really need to know about. So we are going to dive in. I'm really going to be picking AJ's brain, everyone, but in a few minutes. But I still want to find out when she launched her own business. Okay, AJ, I want to get some of those details down, because these founder journeys and the stories behind these founder journeys are so amazing. So you worked at Google, then you started doing, what, did you go to a consulting firm that then?
Yeah. So I was at Google as a UX researcher. Yeah. I got to work on what became Google Optimize, which is Google's like third attempt at an A/B testing tool. Yeah. And I got to talk to hundreds of people doing what I now do. And I saw myself like being on the other side of the conversation and saying, wow, this person really gets to solve the types of problems and have that data that I wish I had in my career. So I was the wild one who decided to leave Google. Everyone looked at me funny, like, why are you doing that? We all have arrived here. Let's stay together. And came out to Austin and worked as an optimization director for a company doing this as their bread and butter. So got to work on some incredible brands, really understand the process behind conversion rate optimization, and also got to bring user research to the company. They had been doing a little bit of it, but I helped formalize it, connect the dots.
Oh, nice.
And so it was like, oh, this is what gets me going, is like, I want to know how user research can be a part of or play a really vital role in conversion rate optimization. It's not just about, is the button blue or red? Is it my idea better than your idea? It's, are we at the end of the day with our testing solving real problems our customers have? That's
right. And the only way you can do that, folks, is with the A/B testing and really finding the language. And again, we're going to get into all those details. So now you stepped more fully into having some power, right? Some influence, some autonomy to create something. Mm-hmm. And what was the lever that got pulled that you said, you know what, I'm going to go create my own business and serve customers in this way?
Yeah, I think it's just been something I've been waiting for. Like, it was like, what's the idea? What's the thing that I want to dedicate and build something around? And so I think I just had a series of mornings where I woke up and was like, this could be something. I really like this intersection. I think there's something there. Yeah. Very kind of, a moment happened where some people started reaching out to me on the side. And I thought, well, let me explore those conversations, see what people need or what kind of questions come up. And I kind of just took a couple of signals and inputs and came back to the company I was working for and said, hey, look, I love what you do, but I'm going to start my own thing. Would you like to be my first client? So I had a client day one, and it made the decision much easier.
Oh, come on. That was a wicked smart thing to do. As we say in Boston, I love that. I mean, how many people say, "Hey, I'm leaving, but would you like to be my client?" What? Usually it's like, take your stuff and leave, and they don't want to see you again. But no, you kept that wonderful relationship and turned them into a paying customer. Come on. That just makes my heart. Hold on, everybody. I think I'm going to have one of these moments right here. Hold on. You can have a side hustle, everybody. And for my podcast listeners, I just had an Andy-licious moment. You can keep your customer and you can leave your company and turn them into a customer. To me, that's just unbelievable. Hey, Alyssa, founder of ArcVita, one of the best sites for anyone who's looking to be more passionately employed and purposely employed and looking for your next gig. This woman and her business rock it. And she's saying, data for the win. Odd that analytics became a male-dominated function, right? And it's true. And it's probably all that science and math that's behind it. You know, people think marketing and they think creative, and no, marketing is so left brain. And hey, Jeanette, how you doing? How are the family? Jeanette's a mom of 5. She's got a thriving business, the Bow Hub. She's amazing. And Gabe, how are you? And this is someone who's stepped into a new role with a company, and he's going to be looking for some serious conversion rate optimization as he helps these former employees from a well-known brand. They're in stealth mode, so my lips are sealed. So I'm so happy to see you here today, Gabe. Now, here you are. You go to launch and you've got your first customer, which of course makes my heart sing, something fierce, but you still had to do what everybody else has to do in building their business. And it's really one of the, I'd say the number one reason startups fail, folks, is when the founders are trying to prove the value proposition that people want what they're selling. So how did you do this? And as someone with such a strong background in value prop and in optimization, how did you find experiment zones, product market fit, its customer segment? Like, who did you want to go after? And how did you differentiate experiment zone from everyone else who was trying to do optimization, whether it was SEO or conversion rate?
Well, I do what a good researcher does. And so I did a lot of market research. I interviewed people that I had worked with before, either clients or more importantly, maybe teammates that I had worked with, to understand how they described me and what I was bringing to the table. Because especially in the first few years, it was a lot about me and my experience and my background. I think an important philosophy for our company is that we're very, very curious and we believe in being iterative. And so that's true about our value props. So as we've had different clients over the years, our value props have changed, and it's always informed by our customer or prospective customer.
Yeah. And that's the thing we have to remember, folks, is that, once we launch, you did your initial, questions and inquiries and all. What did you learn when you first launched? And then tell us, like, what did that shift look like? Because you've been at this since 2017. So there's plenty of time for customers to say, we want more, or we'd like to see some value over here in this category.
Yeah, I think when we first launched, we really thought we were going to be starting the conversation with research and pairing with conversion rate optimization teams. And as we've grown over time, we realize a lot of companies just really struggle with the experimentation, creating experimentation culture, and they're looking to us to be the conversion strategy team. Yeah. So we now position ourselves as a conversion strategy team. We've got our tool belt of different research methods. We have A/B testing, we know analytics, and you can trust us to manage all of that for you. And so I think it's a big shift from assuming the customer knew exactly what they wanted and we could serve that function, and instead being a partner and saying, here's exactly how we're going to manage. And you can trust us at the end of the day for 2 meetings a month for 30 minutes that you can lean on us to do everything else.
Okay. So founders out there, don't be doing this on your own. Don't be struggling. Outsource, all right? Invest and bring Experiment Zone on board. I'm going to just, again, pull that artwork up so you can remember right here. You can get your free conversion report card at theexperimentzone.com. Start building a relationship with them, because you have enough on your plate, founders. You don't have time to be worrying about the pesky details that someone who has the toolkit and is ready to go and is also a founder can help you with. I just love this, AJ, and I love how you have found your sweet spot. What do the companies look like? Like what's the range that you're working with?
Yeah, we work with companies really based on how much traffic they have. So we've got companies that are still in startup mode, but have generated a lot of interest. So one of the clients we work with, has just gone through an accelerator. They are incredibly successful, driving tons of traffic. And so we're helping them say, okay, what do we do with all this traffic now? And then we work with some really well-established companies where they have a brick and mortar store. They're struggling to really make the case for more investment in e-commerce. And so we help them measure, here's the impact just these small changes can have if you look carefully for them.
Right.
So in either case, we're really digging into all those layers and layers of details and then surfacing, like coming to the surface with the key takeaways for the CMO.
And this is so important, especially for you e-commerce sites. And as you said, the company that, we got all this traffic, that's great. Well, that's vanity numbers there, unless you're converting them and unless you're retaining those customers. So traffic numbers are great, and I love that that's how your barometer check is based on traffic and how you have different types of companies and how you're working with them and getting that conversion retention to happen. So it sounds to me like you were bootstrapped, that you funded through customer traction. Did you have to raise any other money?
No, ma'am.
Yay.
We just bootstrapped.
Hold on to that ownership. We love that. That's terrific, because we do get into talking about funding and what it's like for female founders to raise funds, and so I always like to find out how that's worked. But nothing makes me happier either than to hear a company using traction to build. And when you have a service like this, and if you're able to bootstrap and do that, that's wonderful. Okay, everyone, let's dive deep into CRO, because as we've been talking so far, any optimization strategy can be just overwhelming and mind-numbing and eye-glazing for so many founders who are trying to do so much, and adding this one level that is this one tool that is so important. So first, let's talk about what is conversion rate optimization, and then please share why it's so important to understand this strategy. Thank you, AJ. We're just going to pick your brain.
Yeah, conversion rate optimization, or CRO, is the process of getting more visitors to your site to take some sort of action. And typically we would then say they become a customer or they become a lead. So what we're looking to do is get a greater share of that traffic to reach out or to place that order. And CRO is the process of saying, how do we know what those opportunities are? What changes do we need to make to our messaging, images, user journey? So it's a lot of different components, and it really takes a lot of different skills to know what's the design, what's the copy, how do I develop this experience, how do I measure the experience, and then of course project managing all of that.
Yeah, and just to make sure everybody understands, unlike SEO, which is search engine optimization, which is going to get people to come into your site and be aware, right now you apply CRO, right?
Yeah, what's great about CRO is it multiplies the efforts that you're doing in every other digital marketing channel. So if you've invested in SEO or ads or social media, you're spending money to get people to come to your site, and conversion rate optimizations levels up the value of each and every one of those levers. So normally we recommend for companies to look at that bottom, like 20% of your marketing spend, maybe bottom 10%, and repurpose it for CRO, because it's going to go a lot further than it's currently doing.
And so the company's usually done some research in the SEO stage to understand the language and how to build that connection. How does CRO take it deeper to really understanding how they feel?
Yeah, SEO is really good at figuring out what are the keywords people are looking for. So if you think about the customer and what they're doing in the journey, what are they searching in Google is going to be corresponding to SEO. But what do they need to see? What do they need to encounter in CRO is going to be different than SEO. Yeah. So we get them to the page because we're matching their intent to search. But when they get there, are we clearly telling them what we do, who we help, why we're different? Those are sort of the basic fundamentals of CRO. But then all the other aspects, are we displaying our products in such a way that they understand them? It's not overwhelming. It's not distracting them. Does our checkout have the right mechanisms to keep them engaged, to not abandon cart? So there's all different parts of the website journey that CRO really takes a deep look at to understand, are we getting this right? Is there any improvement we can find? Which, let me tell you, there's always improvement to find at every step. It never stops.
It must be exciting though when someone brings you on, right? And you get to go, all right, because there's room for improvement. And because you're so good at what you do, you can go, here we go. Let's do this. Let's do that. And again, folks, it's this testing. And you don't just go, oh, I think this is going to work. No, you explain a little bit, AJ, of how that works.
Yeah, what's pretty exciting about this is we are doing real world experimentation. So we are taking your live site and we're splitting traffic. So 50% of people see one experience, 50% see the other. And then we measure the difference in how people respond to it. So we know that this works with all the psychological things or all the things that might be going on the customer's mind. We're not guessing, we're measuring actual change in what your customers are doing so that we know we've made the right choice.
Oh my gosh. How's everybody feeling out there? You're still with us? Yes, you are. And if you need help, you know where you're going to go right here to the experimentzone.com. How'd you come up with that name, Experiment Zone?
This is probably a good founder life lesson. This is not our first name, but it definitely became an important thing to better understand what we needed, how we needed to position ourselves. So I, very wisely now have reached out and worked with a branding specialist who really helped dig through the user research we had done, helped reframe it and repurpose it to help us get to the name Experiment Zone. So sometimes you need an expert to help you out, even in something that you know how to do, like research.
That's right.
I didn't know how to interpret it in a way to create the right business name.
The shoemaker's kids go without shoes, as the old saying says. That's what can happen. I'm telling you, folks, you have to hire, you have to invest, you have to bring in the experts, and it's not always going to be ideal. You're going to learn a lot, just move quickly. If you've made a bad decision with somebody or it's not a good fit or a good alignment, boom, move them along and go get someone else. But you do not have to do this yourself. So what are some of the mistakes that founders do make, especially our e-commerce sites who can, get some great data from Shopify, et cetera, by not working with CRO or really understanding? What do you see some of the missteps happening?
I think a really common thing is to feel like you're trying to sell a specific product line or something flashy or the feeling of the product. And a lot of times founders are missing like what they do. Just very fundamentally, when you get to any landing page on your site, you should be able to say, here's what I do without any scrolling. And so that's often like an early test we'll run with customers is, how do we just plainly state what it is that you do and how you help? And then secondly, like, who is the customer you're helping? Because if you don't know the answer to that, we've got to do some really good fundamental persona type research together. And sometimes, we think as marketers that we are the customer. And oftentimes when we have a chance to talk directly to the prospect or directly to the people buying our products, there's this magic that comes in the words that they say and how they describe our business. So if you want to save tons and tons of time, do user research. It is a great tool to fast track all content development, to figure out what problems really exist on your site. It is the way to level up everything you're doing.
Oh my gosh. Again, I'm just going to keep saying to folks, bring on the help like Experiment Zone. This is too important. You only have a short period of time, especially if you have investors, to really get that traction up and running, to get you to profitability and sustainability. And, this is where they say, don't do this at home alone, right? No, not unless you have that strong background already. So how can founders implement CRO with confidence versus overwhelm? How, along with, of course, hiring you, but also just to really start training their brain, at least to lead a team and lead an outsourced group like Experiment Zone?
Yeah, I think a lot of times a mistake I see is that we start with ideas. We say, I think it should be a blue button. I think it should be a red button. And so a lot of times founders are just as maybe more likely to do this because we are idea people and we come up with all kinds of ideas. What we need to do is start back at the fundamentals. So what is the goal for our business? What are the problems that keep people from finding out about how to work with us? And if we can anchor every idea we have in a problem or opportunity, then it's going to have a much greater chance of having the right reaction. And it may be the wrong reaction too, but it will be a strong enough reaction, we can measure it. Yeah. And so if we can start with a hypothesis, I think if I change this, then this will happen to our customers, to their mindset. And then we have a plan for measuring it and making sure we got it right or we got it wrong. Then we really know and can build up a body of knowledge about our customers and what matters to them. So if we just test red button versus blue button, we don't learn a lot about our customer. But if instead we talk about, let's test this type of value prop or this type of positioning, or maybe they need to see images and more of a lifestyle angle versus like just a very focused product shot. So there's all kinds of questions you should be asking, and you should always be testing out all your assumptions. But very often, if we just start with the idea, it's just going to be a little bit too surface.
Right. Looks good to me.
Grounded.
I remember one of my companies, I had decided on the color I thought would be great. It was a food product. And then I did my own little research and it came back completely different what everybody wanted. Now, you've been asking questions for forever, right? This has been your whole part of your user experience and your growth in CRO. What if, founder, their teams, they're uncomfortable? I don't want to annoy the customer. I don't want to bother the customer. I'm so glad they purchased something. I don't know if I want to bother them with any, getting any more details out of them. How do founders overcome that chokehold?
Yeah, if somebody is buying our product, people love to talk. They love to share their experience. And so the people that are just not interested in sharing the feedback, or maybe, they'll ignore it. We all get invited to do all kinds of things that we don't do. So don't worry about annoying them, because for most people, they're going to say, wow, you want to learn from me? I'm so excited. Please, let's book a time.
Excellent.
So just kind of keep in mind that just as much as like you want to share what you're doing, other people want to share their experiences. I think the internet really has taught us that people love to post about products. They love to show videos of them opening things and using things. And it's the exact same thing with user research. They love to a lot of times people will end a user research study and go, wow, that was so much fun. They have like a great time doing it. People love to talk and they love to share.
And look, I am a huge fan of posting on Google reviews and giving my feedback from the of the brick and mortar establishments that I visit and putting it out there. So that's another way to get great feedback and information from the Google reviews. I remember my husband has his MBA, so do I. And I remember, for years we would sit there and critique every ad because, when you've gone deep into marketing and market research, you start going, and I can imagine that this must happen with CRO. You're like, wow, I wonder why they used that image there. And I wonder why they chose that word. Do you have that problem now? Like when you go
I can't tell you how many times I've emailed like companies to be like, I just wanted you to know, I noticed the opportunity for you. I may have emailed some airlines about some experiences. All kinds of people get messages from me saying, hey, this is worth a lot actually for me to tell you this. So I'm going to send you this quick little note.
And so, how are you building business? How are you bringing in customers and all of that? Because, you're so busy solving everybody's problem. How do you keep having them come to you and hire you and be able to grow your business?
Yeah, great question. I think part of it is just kind of getting the word out and letting people know what we do. I think that's true for any company. I think we find that giving people some information and feedback about their site is a great conversation opener. So that's a pretty natural thing to do. We find a lot of partnerships that are very helpful. So SEO folks, paid ads folks, those guys all know that if they had a higher conversion rate, the work they're doing is so much more valuable.
That's right.
So we also get a lot of referrals through partners like that.
I happen to be like a huge fan of the whole data and the science behind it all. I'm always saying to people, marketing without data is like driving a car without a steering wheel. I mean, you're just not going to get anywhere at all without that information. Let's talk a little bit about folks who are using a checkout platforms, kind of like a Shopify or the other wonderful platforms out there. What should they be looking for as far as the numbers and the feedback? Because they give good analytics and good data, right?
They give a good starting ground. For the most part, all of our customers we've recommended will pair that data with something like a Google Analytics so that you can start tracking all the granular things that people do. Like, did they click this button? Did they get to this page? Shopify doesn't give you all of that information. But from Shopify, if that's what you're starting with, you want to keep an eye on the overall trends of the business. Are we getting similar sessions? What kinds of sessions? Are they mobile versus desktop? And then how does our conversion rate look over time? I think a kind of a common issue that comes up with Shopify is it presents things in a really short time frame. So it's easy to panic and say, oh no, sales dropped today. More importantly, we want to say, what are the trends over the last 30 days? How does that compare to the 30 days the previous year? So we can look at, is there some seasonality to this? Are we moving the business in the right direction?
Yeah.
So my biggest recommendation is that if you're looking at the data, don't get overwhelmed by small daily movements and instead be saying, what's the overall trends? Are we moving in the right direction? Are there any changes in where our customers are coming from? Where they're getting stuck in the funnel? Are they getting to product pages and not getting to checkout? Or are they all abandoning in cart? So a lot of these questions can get answered in Shopify, and then you can just add to it with other layers like analytics.
Well, I'm not a football fan. And so, of course, in Super Bowl, sorry, everybody, but had no interest. But I did hear about the QR code ad that everybody went crazy over. All the CMOs were like, oh my God. But, my question about that, AJ, is, okay, big uproar. Everybody loved it. And I'm thinking they gave plenty of time for folks to just grab their phones and tap on and see what it was about. But now, did that company convert, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that when I don't know. What are your thoughts about that?
I'm sure they generated a ton of traffic. I mean, my first question is like, did anybody come back? I suspect people weren't converting in the moment at a rate that's anywhere near what they normally do. It definitely generated a lot of conversation, which we know in marketing is any conversation is good conversation. But I would love to, like, if I were them, I'd be digging into that data and understanding that cohort. Did they come back? What did they do? How much time did they spend? And I think, interestingly, QR codes from people with tech backgrounds, we're all very cautious about scanning a QR code. And so, did they attract people intentionally who were a little less techy, who maybe not? And I think it was a crypto company. So are they?
Well, this is my next question.
Yeah.
Somebody who loves good branding.
Yeah.
I have no idea what they did.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They revealed it right at the end. And it was like, okay, that's a QR code. They gave us tons of time to interact with it. But my partner and I were sitting and watching it and going, we should not scan that. This is very unsafe. Do you think that, like, is there some negative source out there creating this and everyone's falling for it? But then they did do a little splash of what the actual website was at the end.
But I still think, too, there could have been a better branding opportunity. So people could say, XYZ company did this really cool QR, code thing, because then, maybe, through some branding language that comes through with that feeling, you're going to feel safe. You're going to say, oh, cool. So I bet a lot of people jump on that bandwagon, but do a better job for it. And at the end of the day, was it worth that kind of money to get people?
That's a good question for all the ads, right?
Right.
The Super Bowl.
I'm so fascinated by it all. So, another question for the CRO aspect. So founders, they hire you, you've helped them. How do they maintain? Like, how do they continue to maintain and grow? Do they continue to use you? Is it something that they can bring in-house after a while? What do you recommend?
I mean, for the most part, we become the experts in the user data and their journey. So we have stayed on with a lot of our clients. Occasionally we'll have clients that say, look, we're trying to grow this part. We're going to try it on our own. Can you run with us while we learn it? Yeah. It's a lot to hire for. It's it's almost a whole web team, right? You have to have the researcher, the analyst, the developer, the designer, the copywriter. So all these people have to be in coordination with the same lens in mind, which I think is kind of the hardest part. Is we're not trying to kind of rethink everything. We're trying to take a very specific focus.
Right.
This test is about, can we focus on differentiators versus all the details?
Yeah.
And getting everyone aligned on with the level of effort and all that stuff. So long answer short, it is definitely something that we are happy to do alongside our teams so that they can really just focus on the bigger picture for the business, and we can handle all the nitty-gritty details and build up a body of understanding. But it is a lot of fun because once you start doing testing, you start getting the value back on that testing program. And so it's like, oh, okay, great. We've already gotten our ROI. We're getting huge ROI multipliers on testing. Let's do more and more.
Yeah.
And so it can be very, very addicting because there's such a strong measurable impact to revenue.
You hear that? Strong, measurable impact. It's not fingers crossed, everybody. It's really no. And I love the word you said. Not only is it intensive financially to bring on a team, but keeping them with the right lens from which to view. Because, when you're an in-house marketing team, you are skewed by the passion of the founder who's probably hammering away at, we need more of it. And sometimes that doesn't help you stay the observer. Mm-hmm. Right, AJ, which I think as a science and data expert, you need to be going, what are the numbers telling me? Not, oh my gosh, my job's on the line because I'm not getting the numbers that the founders want me to get. What are your thoughts on that?
I think one of the biggest kind of values we do bring is that outside lens. And then also just like bringing in what we learn from other clients, because we've got this like cross industry perspective on what the latest trends are in UX, what customers are responding to, maybe what they're not responding to anymore. So a lot of things that were best practices, we are starting to see aren't testing as winners, or they're inconclusive or not impactful. So if you can get that outside perspective, who's on the front lines of here's what customers need right now, you're going to be able to stay ahead of your competition.
Brilliantly said. Thank you, AJ. I mean, I'm telling you, your ability to express these complicated ideas and thoughts so clearly, I, for one, am very grateful for that. So let's shift topics for a second here, because a lot of women and I have conversations, sidebar conversations about something that has become glaringly obvious over the last couple of years, especially, which is the bro culture. And I've asked leaders and founders of organizations, with 100 plus employees, how they are managing what we are calling the bro culture. And how are they taking care of their female tech employees and team members? And it's been very interesting how they're struggling with that, as well as the women I talk to. Now, of course, my generation, we came into the world with just misogyny was happening. I mean, think Mad Men. We were, just constantly hit left and right. And it just seemed that was how life is, those comments that are always being made that are really male based. And, as a mom of two young men, we've always looked at how do we have the right language so that they're honoring of women. But what I'm hearing from so many folks, and what I've experienced myself in the startup community as a co-host of a popular monthly pitch event here, and just hanging out and lunch and having drinks, etc., with my under 40 crowd of male tech and founders, there's this bro culture, and I don't even think they understand that it's happening, AJ, but the language is highly misogynistic. It is not pro-women. I'd love for you to share some of your experience, having worked in a larger group and larger companies, as well as what you've heard other women say.
Yeah, I would say the one place I see this culture reflected a lot, and I will be happy to call anyone out on it, is in the way people ask questions and what questions they ask. So if you are asking a question of a woman that's different than a man, you might want to wonder a little bit more about that.
Right.
I've seen it play out in user research, where I've come into a project that's already existed. And in particular, there was a project for exploring like IT professionals and what their needs were. And the person who was male on the account who was leading the research screened out all of the women, because IT is men, not women. And I thought, if the industry is so biased towards men, that's fine, but we would get that in our sample anyway. We don't need to screen on gender and exclude the IT professionals that are female. So oftentimes it comes up in research in these sort of subconscious ways, where we start to write down the phrasing of things or making assumptions about our personas. And those feel like really natural places to talk about it, because I can call it out, and it's not about you, it's about your assumptions. I have encountered some places where, where, for example, I've worked at places where there's this assumption, well, there just aren't women in data. It's hard to get women in conferences. And, I look at my own team and I say, look, we have more women on our team than men. So I can prove that that's not the case.
That's right.
There are some incredibly talented women in data, and we know how to find them. So if you're not looking in the same way, ask me how I find them, and I'll be happy to share with you, which groups I talk to. I think for me, I went to Wellesley College for my undergraduate, went to a women's college. And there was this default position that anytime we talked about a hypothetical CEO or a hypothetical world leader, a lot of the professors chose she as the pronoun. And so I've just been very tuned in since my, early adulthood to hear that and say, of course, women can be in economics. Of course, women can be in data science, because that's the starting place of it. So of course, the reality is not that in all the ways, but it should be that.
And I see a lot of these pitch events where they're cheering on the young male tech founder who's got maybe 3 weeks left to getting his degree. So undergrad. So like, oh yeah, never seeing that with the young female techs who are, third year of college and doing remarkable things. And you're absolutely right in that question, well, where are they? And I made a big deal about, you being here as representation of a leader of a company that is doing this high level of data and research. But this is going on in our life sciences. I mean, I would say many of the folks out there solving the problem for Alzheimer's, for example, tend to be women founders leading these science teams, raising enormous amounts of capital. But where are they as far as being showcased? And as far as the bro culture, it really came to head for me, when Clubhouse got founded and they got funded so quickly on very little that many people, women or people of color, would never be able to raise that level of capital. But then also, talking about what it's like to be out in the cubicles, the women, and just hearing the language, that's been referred to as locker room, but it's exclusive, folks. It doesn't make women feel comfortable, and there's a low hum of challenges. And as far, I'm with you on the single gender education. That's the beauty of, an all women's school. I received my MBA from Simmons School of Management. So all our cases were women leaders. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about, how to work and maintain your needs, as well as understanding how the men operated and the challenges that you would face in the work world, certainly in banking and finance and law, et cetera. It's been a challenge for so many women to get a toehold. So I really appreciate you chatting with me about this topic. It's my goal to, have these little sidebar conversations during the show, AJ, to grab insights from women like yourself. So you maybe can compile something and start sharing it with the men and have them, wake up a little more because, we want to keep the equity happening and not get too much despairing going on. So when you have felt inadequate as a founder, AJ, and I mean, you are so confident. I mean, I just hearing you, I'm thinking, my gosh, she is just certain and she's moving forward with strength. I know, though, from talking to so many founders around the world, that it doesn't matter. Everybody, even if they're third or fourth company and they've cashed out and had brilliant success, they are still like, how have you shifted? What has worked for you? And you're feeling like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? And I'm just blowing everything up. What has worked?
I have to remind myself it's a roller coaster. Some days feel incredible and you're like, woo, I'm on the top of the hill. And other days you're like, woo, I'm on the bottom of the hill. And so I grew up loving roller coasters. And so I just actually visualize myself and say, look, I'm just heading towards the coming back up again. So sometimes it's just about kind of reminding yourself like why you're on this adventure to begin with. And I think the other thing that is an important part of our culture, and I have to continue to remind myself of, is framing everything as an experiment. There's supposed to be failure. Failure is where we can learn more and grow our understanding and figure out where we've made some choices that we can then build on and do something differently. So it's about failing fast. It's about trying stuff, putting some definition as to whether it's a success or a failure, and then moving on to better things instead of getting stuck in the like, oh no, I failed again. No, I failed again. Yes.
Look what I learned.
Mhm.
Okay, not going to do that again. Or that's not working. Or wow, that just highlighted what is going to work
Mhm.
because you have it as the contrast moment. Oh, that's wonderful. And so since 2017, as an entrepreneur, you've been moving and grooving. How has this experience served you both personally as well as professionally?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned it earlier. I've never been anywhere as long as this. I've always been like looking to the next thing, and there is no looking. All I can do is stay focused and figure out what's in front of me. So it's been super fun, really rewarding. I think really amazingly is like I've been able to surround myself with such an incredible team to work with. And so when I get to like feel their excitement and see their success, there's this like additional pride that comes from not just the company growing, but the people and the whole culture just being so well aligned and taking the best of what I've experienced in other places.
Oh, I am so happy for you. Congratulations on that. Is your team remote primarily or?
Yeah, so we are coming up on our 5 year at the end of this month, and
Yay!
we've been remote since the beginning. So COVID hit, and we were like helping our customers figure it out because we already had the tools down. We know how to like work as a team and
Yeah.
collaborate, and then have
Oh,
those moments to really work together in a nice way.
congratulations. I'm just so happy for you. And I'm so excited to see where everything goes and glows for experimentzone.com. Founders, you'd be crazy not to hop on over there and outsource this important function. Just, that A/B testing, just finding out what is that language, going deeper than you have with your SEO and extrapolating the data that's already probably sitting right there. And you're just like, what did it say? How did it get there? So I am so excited. I'm so glad you came onto the show and gave us your wonderful, not just view of and passion for CRO, but really how founders can use it and how that data is there. And folks, did you feel the joy that AJ had? Like, yes, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I mean, we can put up our own chokeholds and blocks against things like data and science and the numbers that are there waiting for us to explore by having a negative view of them. So I invite you to accept AJ's view of like, oh, sorry, oh boy, it's an experiment. Let's get glowing here. Thank you, AJ, for joining me. Any last words before I wrap up the show?
No, this was a really wonderful, fun conversation. So thank you so much for having me on. And I think just what you just said, I would encourage every founder to just not be afraid. Just go for it. Figure out what questions you don't have the answers to. If you don't know how to figure it out on your own, get help with it. There's no shame in asking. It's worse to hide away. As you said earlier, Andy, just staying at home with your heads down. You've got to get some help and make sure that you're moving your business forward.
And yes, and have someone like AJ and her team explain those numbers for you. I mean, I just want to know, what is that story that just came through in all those spreadsheets? It's so important that you have that story because as a founder, you're sharing your vision and you're solving this problem that you're so passionate about. So I'm truly grateful for all of that. And hey, Gabe, thank you for tuning in. Gabe says, great talk. Thank you. I learned a lot. Loved the insight. Yay, Gabe. All right, I'm going to pop you in the green room and wrap up the show. Thank you so much, AJ, for sharing your wisdom and your brilliance. I'm glad I wore my smarty pants today. I probably didn't ask enough questions because, it was just so great to have you. So maybe we'll be reaching out to you for further details. But until then, I'm going to go and wrap up the show. Thank you so much for joining me. Oh my gosh, my brain, I got to tell you, because I do love numbers. I think numbers are so fascinating. And if you look at them as something that can turn you on and also enlighten you and make this founder journey easier, you'll be in great shape. Let me tell you who's coming on next. Oh my gosh, I don't have it up front here. Oh boy, hold on. I've got to bring it up because this gentleman is so exciting. This is hosting, directing, producing the show. Here we go. It's Tuesday, February 22nd at 12 p.m. ET. Look who's joining us. This phenomenal founder, Frederick Van Hoon. And he's an award-winning Swedish-Cambodian entrepreneur and the co-founder of Absolute Internship. And that's a leading global internship program matching university students with internships in person and remote at top companies around the world. And he's been at this since 2007, and he's got a lot of other phenomenal stories to share. So we're going to have a good time with him. And how do you know when we post a new show? Well, of course, you hop on over to the Startup Life Live meetup group, join the group. You'll receive an alert whenever a new show is coming out, so you can click on the links and set the reminders and tune in at that time. Before I leave, I'm just going to say this, my favorite little piece of advice to remind you, please remember that you're braver than you believe, and you are stronger as a founder. You're getting stronger every day, and you are wicked smarter than you think you are, especially when you bring in people like our guest to help you have success with your business. I'm so excited for all the growth that you're having and all the experiences that you are crawling through. And I know it can be really, really hard some days. So I'm glad you're here. I hope you got a shot of inspiration, and please reach out. I'll be happy to share some Andeliciousness with you. Reach out to me wherever I'm going. I'm on all the platforms. But until then, I'm wishing you a delicious day and admire you for having the courage to pursue your dreams. Mwah! Take care.